Hey guys, welcome to the I Hope You Hear This podcast. Today I have with me returning guest Edward's son. Last time we talked through the podcast logo and brand identity redesign that he did for us. And he's gone quite viral with his design account on Instagram, Edward Creates. And so we talk about kind of the journey of going viral, the pitfalls of that, his decision to go into doing his own business, and even AI. We talk about a lot of stuff on this episode. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy. All right. I don't even... Welcome guys to the I Hope They Hear This podcast. This is episode 2 of what I'm calling in my head season 2 of the I Hope They Hear This podcast, because it's been a while. And yeah, I think about it as like for the first 2 years I had like a really consistent stream of episodes, and then I started it was spotty for a little bit, and then not right now I feel like I have a decent lineup coming up, so I feel comfortable calling it season 2.
Nice.
But
Well, I'm honored. I'm honored to be a part of season 2.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Of course.
And we've been talking for a while about you coming back on the podcast, but
Yes.
you've been busy. You've been doing a lot of stuff. And for those of you guys who don't follow, it's Edward Creates on Instagram. So if you want to follow him in his journey of like everything he's doing creatively, I've been really enjoying watching you do all that. And I wanted to kind of circle back to when we had our conversation last time on the podcast. Is this your second or third time on the pod?
I think it is my third.
I think yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is, because
Which is crazy.
one of the ones, for those of you who don't know, the branding of the podcast, like it's all done by Mr. Captivated here himself. And you know,
Captivated.
yeah, you know how when you first kind of gave me all the files and all the like branding and logos and all that, honestly, I was like overwhelmed. I was like this is like, why would I ever need all of this? You know, like he could have given me like literally one photo and it would have been fine. But I did like a mini series called I Hope You Read the Bible. And it was perfect because like the usual podcast background is like black with the logo, but then I wanted to differentiate that a little bit, and you gave me the one with the white background.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is perfect. So I was able to kind of use that, and like there's this AI tool that you can use to make like reels and clips, and I was looking through the file of all the things you sent me, and I was like, oh, I can use this as kind of the not watermark, but like the brand, like
Yeah, like the logo.
the logo for
yeah.
those reels. So it's been great. So,
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm glad. That was my first ever like full branding project where I did like the strategy interviews and everything. And you were very gracious to allow me to do that with this podcast.
No,
So I appreciate it.
I got like, in terms of like monetary value, hundreds and maybe even thousands of dollars of value from that whole process. So you were very gracious to allow me to do that, because you know, like when people say it's like their first time doing it, you expect the product to be lower quality, but I don't feel that at all. You know,
Well,
it's
great.
great work.
I'm glad you didn't feel that I was doing it for the first time and figuring it out as I
No,
went.
no, I didn't feel that. No, you could have told me this was kind of what you did for a living, and it would have been, I would have been like, yeah, of course.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
So have you been doing more of that recently, or?
Yeah, I have. Since then, I have done. I don't even know how many. I've done a lot since then. But I learned so much from that process that I have then applied to so many other things since then. So.
You know, one particular one you did that someone kind of explained to me and kind of blew my mind was a Patria house.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the logo because when you look at the logo, it just looks like a house.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, Patria house, that makes sense. And there's like, it just looks like a little bit of fancy like design stuff in the middle. But Pastor John, when I was talking to him about it, he was like, yeah, like that was great because he told me about like the 5 pillars and like how each of the elements within the logo of the house represents those pillars.
Yes.
And now I'm like, every time I look at it, it's like, oh, that is amazing.
No, yeah, they, John and Lydia, for some reason, bring out the best work in me. Because I just did another logo for another thing that they're doing.
Okay.
And that one is also like, when I found the idea, I was like, oh my goodness, this is genius. You know, it's like every once in, like the whole thing about logo design is there is a logo that exists. You're just looking for it, you know,
Oh, wow.
to like, you're trying all the different possible combinations of all the things. And then when you find it, you like, no. And for Patriot House, that was like the moment for me. I had that, whenever you have that moment, it's like very fulfilling.
Yeah.
Even for the podcast, when I had the speech bubble in the megaphone,
Yeah.
that whole thing, I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
I love it. I love it when logos look very simple, but then there's so much like details in it that you can like dig into it. Like, for those of you who don't know, if you look at the logo of this podcast, it just looks like a megaphone, but like the end of the megaphone, if you look closely, it's actually a speech bubble. And because we're saying I hope you hear this, so it's like speech, and the whole megaphone logo is a throwback to the first logo I had, the legacy logo, where literally it was like one of the default photo choices for the platform I was using. I was like, okay, it kind of seems to fit. So like being able to kind of bring all that together, and like you can discuss the logo and dive into it and kind of learn about the history and the story and kind of the soul of the product itself through that. Yeah, it's always you've done a good job when you kind of have something like that.
Yeah, it's very satisfying for sure.
So the first time we talked, I think, was when you weren't new, but you were relatively newer in the design area, right?
Yes.
Like I think when I wanted you on the podcast, it was I wanted to talk more about your music, and I think we did talk about your music.
Yeah.
But then you were kind of getting more into the design space, so we talked a lot about that as well. And then after that, we did the podcast where we explained the whole rebranding. But since then, you're pretty much a celebrity in like the Instagram design world. Yeah.
No, it's definitely complete accident that I am where I am.
Yeah.
So
yeah, let's talk about that a little bit because Edward creates your Instagram account. You have hundreds of thousands of followers. You kind of went through a journey of doing this and that, and then kind of having to pivot and go a different direction, right? So there was, and it's funny because like as I was, because I follow you on Instagram, I wanted to message you one day and say, like, this was when you were kind of getting into the doing the AI artwork stuff. Yeah, you were doing the prompts and like making things, and I was like just about to text you, oh hey, like you want to come on the podcast and talk about like the future of AI and the AI artwork.
Yeah.
And for some, like I think I got caught up with something, so I forgot to hit send and I had to go off and do something, and literally maybe the day after, or maybe it was later that day, you posted your video about how like you kind of want to pivot away from that. So I was like, okay, never mind. I'm gonna delete the message.
No, I mean, I still have a lot of thoughts about that, but yes, that was a huge like accident. It was like I was posting. I mean, I think you've been following me since like I first started posting on that account. It was like this was like a secret project. I wasn't like following any of the people I knew. I was just gonna post a graphic every day inspired by scripture and like try to get better at design, right? But then. So what I would do was like I got to the point where I was posting in threes because Instagram there's like 3 columns, right? And then I was doing like a series, so I would try a new style every 3 posts just so I could like keep learning every day, right? And it was like COVID, so it was like I was worried about like is my job gonna be secure? If it's not, then I want people to know that I'm a designer on the internet, so maybe I can get a job easier or whatever, you know? And so I was just doing that, and then the AI stuff came out, and so I thought this is a tool I can use for one of my series, you know? So I was just doing what I usually do. It was just about the AI stuff this time. And then it's funny because those graphics I posted actually didn't do well compared to all my other stuff.
Huh.
But then Instagram sent me a notification, and it was like, we'll pay you to make a reel. And at this point, I never made a video. I only made like graphics, right? And so I was like, well, if they're going to pay me and I've been spending an hour every day for the last 2 years doing this, maybe I should try it, you know? And that's like maybe another level for me to like try something new for the next 3 posts. So I made a video, just like a video about one of the graphics I made over the last year. And then in like an hour, it got like 20,000 views. And at the time I had like 5,000 followers. So I was like shocked, you know? And then Instagram was going to pay me like $100 for that. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And so I decided, okay, I'll make like 3 videos about the series I just did, which is the AI thing, you know? And then those just exploded so unexpectedly.
Because you post a lot of videos of your process, but it wasn't up until that point that you made any videos. Everything else before that were just the graphics themselves.
Yeah, it was just, so I would do like a carousel. I would do like graphic, and then if you swipe once, it's like a time lapse. But I never talked. It was like no music. It wasn't a reel. It was just like, I just literally recorded the time lapse and then I posted it, you know?
Right.
But then the reel was like I was recording stuff with my phone and doing like transitions and then like talking over it and adding music. So that was completely new. Never did that before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And did Instagram continue to like pay for that, or?
They did, yeah.
Wow.
So even to this day, they're still paying for views
Wow.
on Reels, which is insane to
Yeah.
me. But that's, I mean, I think it was just like they want to compete with TikTok, so they want all their users to have incentive to like post videos. And then I guess their algorithm also rewards that. So unexpectedly, just because I was interested in making a little bit of money, everything exploded.
And then was it like overnight that you got all these new followers, or was it kind of?
So it was like a week. So I was posting every day. So there was kind of a compounding effect. So the first video started to blow up. It got like 70,000, 100,000. It kept going. But then as it was still going, I posted the next day. And then that one did even better. And then the third day I posted even more. And that one I think was still like to this day the most viewed video on my account. I think it got like 6 million views or something. And then I kept posting every day. And then in a week I went from 5,000 to like 87,000 or something, which was like, it was insane. It was like every time I opened Instagram, it was like insane notifications, you know. It was like a rush. It was like I was addicted. I was like, I'm gonna keep posting. This is like the best feeling I've ever had in my life, you know. But then that didn't last very long.
So then that feeling, was it something you had to like actively resist or fight against, or was it just it kind of petered out and you didn't get the same rush, so that's why?
I think what happened was I burned out. So like I was making videos every day, but then I was doing it in the exact same format, but with a different prompt, right? So, yeah, literally the exact same video. And then eventually people were like, hey, you're doing like the exact same thing. Everything looks the same and all that. And then I was like, okay, I guess I need to invent ways for me to do this more creatively. So I've tried a few more things, and like as more AI, because there was a time where like every day there was like a new AI tool or feature or whatever. So I was like trying all of these new tools. But then I got to the point where it was like, you know what, I have like so much of my life that I'm no longer putting into my work, because I feel like because these people followed me for the AI videos, I can only make that, you know? And so I felt like this is no longer bringing me joy. And it is not even like something that is part of who I am. It was literally just me trying something new once. And then now all these people know me for this, but it's like not who I am. So it felt disingenuous. And then it was like, do I really want to spend my time talking about this AI stuff? And then also it's a controversial thing. So people were like, you're against artists and you're like ruining this. You're the problem with this world and all that stuff. And at the same time, there were like Christians who were saying, you know, you're glorifying this thing that is not like human art, or like it's like not honoring to God, like all that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
And then there were other people who were like, this is amazing, like you should keep doing it. And so and also when you get so many views so quickly, you start to get an insane amount of very negative comments. And that also can be difficult to deal with.
Do you like read every single comment?
I tried to, which is not good. I don't advise anyone doing that. But I did try to do that, and then I also tried to respond for a while. But then it just got like so crazy. It was just like so many, and every time I opened it, it was like if I did it, I could just spend all day, you know. And it would just get to me. It would be like, well, all of these people are here. They don't know anything about me. I built a lot of relationships in the first, like, even if it was only 5,000 followers, it was like, I made a lot of friends, and we all were like Christian creatives, and it was like, we all wanted to learn and grow together. It was like that community, but then I was kind of like torn away from that suddenly. And so just like all of that led me to the point where I was like, I don't think I can keep this machine going. So I just stopped posting. And then for like a few months, my followers still increased because there were so many videos that were still being fed to the algorithm. But then eventually, the followers stopped growing, and then I had to withdraw and do something else.
And is that when you made the video about like pivoting away from AI?
Yeah. So I took like a 8-month break, where all I did was get into photography and videography. It was like my escape. It was like, no one is seeing me do this. And like even at work, it was getting really busy. And so I felt like I was like pulling all-nighters, working like so much. And I just felt like that thing that I originally started posting on Instagram for, which was to express myself and to try new things, like play. I didn't have any place in my life to do that anymore, because the thing that was play for me became like draining and work for me, which was social media. And then I couldn't enjoy work because it was like so busy. So I was like, I need something else that's creative that I don't have to be good at. No one is paying me for. And so I learned like photography and got into cameras and video and all that stuff. And then after I took a long enough break, I was like, you know what? I also like social media, but I don't want to come back and do the same thing I did before. So then I made that video about pivoting my whole account. There was like, that ties into my transition with my career, but that is what led me to that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, that's kind of like you hit like the trifecta of negative things, because it was you being pigeonholed into this very particular part of the creative process. It was like just negative feedback in general about the creative side, and then negative feedback about your faith. Like that must have been rough, like having to kind of absorb all of that at once.
Yeah, I learned very quickly, you don't want to go viral. Like this is like, growing gradually is 1,000,000 times better than growing suddenly, because unless you blow up for something that is like so core to who you are and people love you for that, then it's like, I guess it's amazing, because you're going to want to do that forever.
Right.
But for somebody who tried something new and that blew up, and it was like a mainstream thing, like AI at that time was a mainstream news thing, you know, it attracts all kinds of people, and all kinds of people do not respect faith, you know, and who you are and what you do and all that stuff. So
did you get a lot of feedback from non-believers because you were a believer? Like, were there a lot of those
there was a lot of like, why is it always about God? And like, if you're gonna make a video about the glory of God, like why? It was like, the glory, you're showing all of this life, but what about all the people God killed in the Bible and all this stuff? And or is this, you believe in this God who like condones genocide and all that stuff? You know, all the common critiques of faith.
Right.
But it's interesting also, because it was like, I felt like I couldn't not make a video about God, because the engagement, because of the controversy it was causing in the comments,
Interesting.
made the videos perform better.
Right.
So when I made a video that wasn't about God, it didn't do as well as a video that was about God. But it was like not good attention, but it was good attention. You know, like I was getting paid for the more views,
Right.
but it was attracting like very hateful conversation in the comments. It was a weird situation.
Oh, wow. And also it's, you know, one of the things that I always never could fully understand is when there's a person of faith and somebody who is not a person of faith enjoys their content, they'll always make the request, oh, can your content be not about your faith? And I think like that's a fundamental misunderstanding from the person who is not of faith to make that request. It's almost like going to like us and say, hey, can you guys like tone it down on the Asian stuff? Like, wait, that's who we are. Like, why are you asking us to do that? You know, like,
Yeah,
so, and I
absolutely.
think and it kind of pains me to say this, but in kind of the general Christian culture in America, there's a lot of like lukewarmness. So I think there are a lot of people who can do that, who can say, oh, I'm a Christian, but let me downplay that for something else. But I think there too, you kind of have to really think about like, what is your faith to you that you can just suddenly turn it off, you know? And, you know, as Christians, we're called to follow Christ and have no other idols above him. So yeah, it's, I always appreciated you kind of never, because I do see some of those comments too. And I think we talked about it the first time you were here when you did the red dragon
Oh yeah,
logo for
yeah, for Reach Records. Yeah.
right. And you like, yeah, just kind of, there's always somebody who has something to say about the creative process when you're doing things and still trying to glorify God, right? Yeah. But I really appreciate how you never kind of back down from it, because it would be so easy to, right? Like kind of be discouraged and say, you know what, like like I'm getting all this negative feedback, so I'm gonna separate the two, you know. But I feel like you've never really done that.
Yeah, I appreciate that because it is difficult. It's a difficult decision to make, but and I also understand like there are believers who do this for work, and they want, for the sake of their families or livelihood, to keep that to relationships in person, which I can also understand the merit of, because I don't know, online conversations about faith might not even be productive in the first place. Right. But I just felt like if I don't, it's like I am a vain person, you know? I will naturally want to glorify myself. So I feel like if I don't try to keep faith as a core element of my content or my work in some way, that I am not strong enough to be faithful, because I know my own heart.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You know, that really, I'm able to relate to that really well, because at the inception of this podcast, I wanted to keep it like agnostic from, and I guess it's confusing using that term when I'm talking about faith. But really just separated from the faith. Like I wanted to have conversations that weren't necessarily like focused on faith, because I was like, I don't know if I can do that well. I might misrepresent Christianity in certain ways. I don't want to do that. And it wasn't, you know, actually, this is funny. It wasn't until we had that branding conversation where I was
I
like,
remember this.
yeah, because you kept trying to steer toward like, and you know, your podcast, like the audience that it resonates with are people of faith. You know, like you were kind of like staring it there. And I remember trying to keep like staring it back of like, yeah, but I want it to be more like wide reaching and not necessarily about faith. So like, but after that, but then, you know, but I was just like, no, wait, but you know, you kind of do your process. And then let's just see what we come up with. And then I'm glad we did that, because I'm realizing more and more, like it just doesn't make sense to, and like kind of what you were talking about with people who, you know, it's for their jobs and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, totally respectable and understandable. But for something that you're trying to be really authentic to, it is really almost nonsensical to try to separate such a big part of who you are from that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole when I did the I Hope You Read the Bible series, that was me kind of diving headfirst into the whole thing.
Yeah.
And kind of saying, you know what, I guess I have tried to keep it separated, but no, it makes me not say things that I normally would when I'm having conversations with someone. Like if and like something comes up and I don't agree with it, or like I think they're misrepresenting like biblical text or something. Like I think previously I would have just kind of been like, okay, and just kind of like let them be. But then like it always felt really disingenuous. Like I wasn't being who I really am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting to see kind of, because what we do is very different. You know, like I don't know anything like in terms of like creatively like producing visuals and things like that. You know, all I do is talk, right? But the fact that there is a part of us that we almost feel like we're betraying by hiding certain aspects of who we are.
Yeah.
I think that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And even with your whole AI thing, right? Like you could have taken the path down, well, I'm just going to become the AI guy and keep getting these crazy views. But there was a part of you that you were feeling like, I'm not really like being genuine about who I am and like the things I'm interested in. Right?
Yeah. And if I'm not happy, why am I doing it? You know, like it wasn't like I was trying to do it for my job. It was like just a side thing, like for expression. And if I can't be happy, it doesn't matter if I'm getting paid. If I can't like be true to myself, it just feels wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know, then I want to ask you about, it might be your latest video where you kind of did the chair review.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was almost shocked, but I was like, oh, I'm shocked at your review, but also not shocked because I was like, oh, of course, Edward would be this way. You know, you were very honest about the chair. And just knowing that they're the ones who sent you the chair, and
Yes.
there, I think, is a large part of the population who, in that situation, would have sugarcoated things a little bit, but you were like painfully honest, right?
Yeah. This is another big lesson I learned from blowing up, which is you get contacted very early on by brands. They want to pay you to talk about their product, right? Initially, I said yes to everything because I was like, this is awesome. This is everybody's dream. Be an influencer, get free stuff, you know? Yeah. But I would get contacted by these companies, and then I would just say yes, and then I would test their product, and then I would discover this product is bad. It is not good. I would never recommend this, and I would never use it myself. But then I would just recommend it anyways. Like I would make a video about like me using it for something, and then, you know, firstly, it wouldn't do well because people would be able to tell this is like, what is this, you know? And then secondly, I think they would also be able to tell that like I'm not actually excited about the product, you know? And then I realized I was listening to Tim Ferriss talk about brand deals, and then he said the number one like non-renewable resource that you have there is time, but then if you're a creator and you have an audience, it's credibility. You cannot, once you lose credibility, it is incredibly difficult to rebuild credibility, and your value as a content creator is your credibility. You know, like if you think about every reviewer that you trust or every video that you watch online, it's like, if you can tell that this person was paid to talk about this product, you're going to pick someone else so you can hear what the actual experience of using the product is, you know? And so I learned that, and then I decided at that point, if I want to have any type of career in content creation, which I discovered I do love doing it, and so I did want to continue doing it, I can't, I have to be genuine. Like I have to really believe in the product, and I have to be honest, because if my audience sees me being honest about the bad products, then they will believe me when I talk about the good products, you know. But if they only see me say good things about products, they're going to be like, okay, this guy's the guy who just likes everything, you know. Like I don't trust his opinion. And every reviewer is like that, I've noticed. And it seems effortless when they do it. Like if you look at MKBHD or like Dave2D, like the tech reviewers,
Right.
Their videos are like so simple. Some intros or like transitions are like highly produced, but really it's just them talking down and sharing their opinion.
Yeah.
But they're like not afraid to call out their friends,
Right.
you know, and call out when a product is bad or whatever. And so I realized how hard it is to do that, because you do have to email this company saying like, hey, you cannot review this video in advance, and you know, no matter what you say, like this is for the credibility and of the review, like you can't, you know. And this chair company tried a lot, like they constantly asked me. And then, but yeah, no, I decided I need to protect the credibility in order for it to be a worthwhile piece of content that exists on the internet.
Yeah. So after that, after you post that video, did the company like reach out saying, hey, what's up, why'd you do that, or anything?
Yeah. So let me be clear. Okay. When the company reached out, they said, we want to send you a chair, and we just want you to review it, you know? And then I said, okay, you have two options. You can either send me the chair and then don't pay me, and I'll make a video, an honest video, that you cannot have any advanced review before I post it. For this, if you're confident about your product, this is a good option. Or you can pay me to make an ad for you. Like I can make an ad and I can just talk about the best parts of the product, you know, and then you could use it to like boost on your channels as an ad, you know, instead of paying a company to make an ad for you. And then they were like, okay, well, we'll just send it to you, and then you can do the honest review thing, you know? I'm like, okay, then I was clear, you know, about that. And then they asked me again, and they said, hey, but maybe can you just send us the script, and then we can review that. We don't have to watch the video. And I said, I can send you the portions of the script for factual verification, like where I talk about the product, like it has this type of support, or has this many wheels or headrests or whatever. But I'm not going to share with you my opinions in advance, right? And they said, okay, sounds great, you know? And then I sent them the stuff, the portions. They were like, hey, we want you to maybe like add that this is like premium, or add like, and I'm like, okay, that makes it less unbiased.
Right.
And the video is already too long, so I can't guarantee I'll add those words in. And they said, okay, great. Looking forward to seeing it live, you know? And then so I post it with my honest review, and then they email me saying, hey, can you take down the video? Can you take down the video, because we have to review it in advance? And then I said, okay, listen.
Yeah.
And I sent them the dates of all the emails, and the quotes and the bolded like sections where we agreed that you are not going to review this in advance. And then they ghosted me.
Yeah, wow. I know, but you know, that is what they signed up for.
I feel like I really did my best effort to be very clear.
Yeah.
You know, like this is, and I sent them an example, because like I did it once before for like this light bar that went on my monitor. Yep. And in that video I said the things I love and hate, and even at the end I said, but honestly, you don't need it. You know. And I sent them that as a reference. So I just feel like I was like, I gave all the due diligence, like for you to know what you're getting into. Yeah. And they still were upset about it. So
no, but you know, you do add at the end, you know, like it might be a little bit more expensive for what it is, but it's still like not like it's still usable, right? So like I think were really fair. It wasn't just 100% negative, the review. So that's you know, I was right when I saw it, I was immediately like, oh, like I wonder how the company took it. I wonder what the whole process is.
Yeah, the top comment was like, bro's never getting another chair review. And I was like, yeah, honestly, I don't know if I will. But
yeah, no, but I think when I find somebody who I really trust like as a someone who's a content creator, when I find somebody who I trust, I'm kind of their follower for life, you know, until they do a review and I try a product and I know that they lied about it. And then once that trust is broken for me, like I, as a consumer, will never act on a endorsement that they put out. You know,
Yeah.
so I think what you were talking about, it makes absolute sense. You don't want to compromise that to, yeah, kind of get the short-term win when it's going to compromise your long-term win in the yeah.
Yeah, if I wouldn't, Tim Ferriss had a rule. He was like, if I wouldn't recommend this to my friend, then I'm not going to recommend it to my audience of strangers.
But you know, also like I think the company should have done a better job of selecting the person to do the review. What I mean by that is it feels like that chair is for more like casual people, but you and obviously they selected you because they enjoy your content and you make like beautiful, like really engaging videos, right? And that's why they selected you. But then you're also a person who's like in a chair working most of the time, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I guess you're gonna be the person that they'll get the most honest review from.
Yeah.
But I think they should have known their product better and then gone with a more casual chair user.
Yeah, they did. I do think they were also unlucky because I was coming from $1,000 chair that I sat in for 6 years and had no problems with. It was just an unfortunate situation for them, but good for building credibility with my audience.
Sure. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So have you gotten? So you haven't gotten any more chair sponsorships yet?
Well, I did get a company like not long. I think it was like the day after I posted it that reached out that wanted me to review a chair.
Oh wow!
But it was a gaming chair, so I told them I don't think this. I don't play games, and my audience doesn't play games, so I don't think this is the right fit. That was another thing I had to learn. Was it has to actually make sense that I am the one talking about the
right.
thing. So I said no, but I told them if they have an office chair ever, they can reach out. But
Like if somebody was like, "Hey, can you review this spatula?" Then like
yeah. There's no way. Yeah,
Right.
Unless it has a special feature, a Bluetooth design in Photoshop spatula type of thing.
right. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So then that chair was part of kind of was it? I think it was like your second video in your kind of working for myself series that you're going to be doing, right?
Yes.
So can you kind of walk us through your decision to step away from your 9 to 5 and kind of go into that?
Yeah. So it has always been my dream to try and run my own creative business. But I never thought I could do it for a variety of reasons. Like there's a lot of self-doubt. There was a lot of fear. I'm a very risk-averse person. And also, like, you know, I've got married. There's another person depending on me. Also, we got a house, so now I have a mortgage, you know. Like, the older I got, the more reasons I found to not take the risk, right? But it got to the point where Deborah and I, my wife and I, we've been talking about having kids. We finally agreed that we do want to have kids. It's just one big obstacle for me is that I have always wanted to chase this dream, you know, but it was kind of hypocritical of me or wrong of me to let that hold me back from having kids because I was also not doing anything to pursue the dream, you know? And so my wife and I talked about it and we decided like, because of that phenomenon of me getting more and more risk as I get older, if I have kids, it's going to be even harder for me to take it. So I would have to wait at least till I send them to school, send them all to school, before I can have the time to devote to building a business. That's going to be like 5, 6, 7 years down the road. So this is really the best time for me to do it. You know, that's what it boils down to. So we agreed on that, but then I just had questions of like, can I actually do it? Like, I think a lot of people have a romanticized idea of what entrepreneurship looks like, but maybe a lot of us don't have what it takes to do it. And I felt like I didn't have the self-discipline to do it. And so my company that I work for right now has this amazing policy, which is So we have unlimited pay time off, which is amazing already, right? But they also have a minimum required. Like everyone has to take at some point in every year 2 weeks consecutive pay time off.
Oh, wow.
It's like enforced. It's like the CEO was like to the whole company, if you don't take it, you can expect to have a conversation with your manager about why it didn't happen. And so it was like, okay, I guess I have to do it, you know? And so I decided I'm going to take 2 weeks off. This was when I made that video of like pivoting. So it was actually last year, last fall.
Pivoting away from AI.
Yeah, away from AI. So this was a while ago. At that time, I thought, okay, why don't I take 2 weeks off and pretend? Let me pretend that I am a freelance graphic designer and that I'm a content creator. So I'm going to wake up every day and do that as my job for 2 weeks and see if I have the self-discipline to do it, you know? So I did that and I thrived. I was like,
wow.
I loved it. I felt so fulfilled and satisfied and excited every day. And I was like, I just was like, oh my God, this is my dream and I'm doing it right now, you know? And it just so aligned up at that time. There was an organization in California called V3. They wanted to do a like logo design. And so I just did a logo design for them at that time as well. So I had the full experience, you know? And then ever since then, I started to talk with my wife very seriously about it. We started saving money, talking about what it would look like for us to accomplish it. I was like praying so much. I was so stressed about this decision. I asked every person I knew for advice, and I was listening to all of these like people who had done it before and their advice and all that stuff. But through a series of a lot of moments where I felt God really responded to me and gave me wisdom. Even like this one guy was like prophesying over me, and then he was like, God is like getting you ready for like this thing that you've been preparing for, but like you've been putting off, and it's like now time for you to come up to the bat, and like it's time. Now is the time, you know? And then I was like, I'm not like a charismatic person. I actually always grew up not believing that was a thing anymore, but you know, I have a relationship with this guy, and like he has a real relationship with God, and like there's just so many moments like that that I was like, I think I can do this with the blessing of God, you know? And that gave me, I think, the real confidence that I needed.
Wow.
And, you know, him helping me realize I'm not my provider. He's my provider. And knowing that with my business, I can serve people in a way that I can't working for another company. All of that has led me to decide that at the end of this year, I'm transitioning out.
How did your company take it?
My company was amazing. I mean, I can't stress it. I think in the very first episode we ever had together, I was already talking about how amazing my boss is, right? So very consistent. I mean, he's still the same guy. You know, they were very gracious. They were like, you know, you have helped us get where we are now.
Wow.
And so we want to help you get where you want to go.
Wow.
You know? And even down to the things like, I mean, first of all, me asking for 3 months. It's I gave them 3 months notice. I didn't give them 2 weeks notice. And them being gracious enough to say, okay, we trust that Edward is not going to just check out.
Sure.
We're going to continue paying him for this whole time, and we're going to, you know, keep trusting him and all that. But not only that, I have like everything in my home office is company property. Like the chair video that I made, the desk, the monitors, like the laptop that I was using and all that stuff. There was like half of the stuff I was going to ask them if I could just buy it from them because it would be better for me and easier, but they just decided to let me have it.
Wow.
It was just like, and they want to be my first client. They want to keep working with me.
Wow.
They told me like, we don't believe that we can replace you, and so we want to keep working with you. And just like, you know, all of the best possible things you could imagine your boss telling you when you quit. They said all those things, and they've been very generous to the very end. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it does speak to like your ability and your character as well. Because if they didn't think that you were of value, or if they thought you were some shady guy, then I don't think they would have offered that kind of olive branch, So
Yeah, I mean, I still will say that everything that I am, like they made me. I learned to be hardworking and respectful and like have a smart process and like contribute a lot to them because I saw the other people in the company doing that also. So it's just like, I think the best possible outcome, which also speaks to, I think, the fact that God is really
right.
blessing this whole thing. So.
Yeah. I remember when we first did the brand design thing together, I think I asked you, hey, would you ever consider kind of doing your own thing? And I remember at that time, you had like a laundry list of reasons why you didn't want to do that.
Interesting.
Do you remember that?
I don't remember this.
No, 'cause, one of it was like, well, like, it doesn't make sense for me to like branch out because I don't have like some of the equipment or like the software and like you had all these reasons. And I remember thinking in my head like, well, those are like pretty simple for you to like acquire by yourself.
Very solvable problem.
Right. That's what I was thinking. But I was like, well, this guy must know something that I don't know. But do you think at that time it was kind of that fear and that risk adverseness that?
No, yeah, I have this accountability group of guys, where there's 5 of us, and I met up with that. They were one of the core people that I asked for like their advice and everything. And David Kim, he's one of the guys.
Yeah.
And in that conversation, he told me, I think we all know how amazing your work is, and we all believe that you can do it, and it's not a question for us. The only reason you're not doing it is because of your insecurity.
Wow.
Yeah, he said that. He said that to me. And so I think that was clear. That was very clear to me that I guess maybe it is. Maybe it is the fact that I don't believe in myself. I don't believe I can do it. I'm ignoring all the proof that's there. Every time I talk to Deborah about my doubt, she's like, God has been providing all of these things. Let me list to you all of the things that should not have happened to you, but have happened to you, and reasons why you shouldn't have any of this doubt, and you should just believe and trust God. Yeah. I think at that time I was definitely like just starting out in design, not thinking that I would ever be anything successful, just grateful to be in the room because I never even thought I could be a designer, but over time I have come to, if it's not like confidence in my abilities, it's just confidence that God will continue to make a way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And you didn't go to like art school or anything like that, did you?
No, I didn't. I just took one class in college about Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, the design trio. But that's it.
Yeah. That's even that I think you should look back to and kind of recognize God's hand on all of this, just how he's provided for you to being able to do not only something that can provide for your family, but also something that you love to do and you're really passionate about and something that excites you. That's the blessing that not many people get.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're right.
I think that's taking inventory of blessings is a discipline that all believers should get into because it's so easy to forget and start doubting again. One of the things for me that I recognized about myself, I used to have a lot of anxiety and, still do sometimes, but it's always because I'm trying to become the provider for my family.
Yeah.
Which, I believe that I have the duty to do so. And, God, wants me to provide for my family. But I think about it in such a unhealthy level, like to the point of like, I need to protect like all social interactions for my kid because I don't want her to get bullied. And like, it's like really like, I take a step back and look at it and I'm like, man, I'm like trying to be God over her life, and so, yeah, I often have to kind of take a step back and look at my daughters and say, man, God's provided so faithfully. He's grown them so well. Like he's protected them so well thus far. Like, I don't know what makes me like keep doubting sometimes, or like being afraid or anxious about certain things. But yeah, that's I think a huge lesson that all of us, that we can kind of take and try to mold and kind of grow.
Yeah, there's that famous prayer, the God give me the courage to change the things that I can, the serenity to accept the things I can't change, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's, I think, whenever I feel that I'm like making myself my provider, it's because I'm trying to control things that only God can control, really, you know, or I'm worrying about things like, when is my next client going to come? That is like, of course I'm going to be diligent. I'm going to be like putting myself out there, keep my portfolio up to date, all that stuff, like treating my clients well. But there's a limit. I can't know for sure who the next person's going to be. If there's going to be war, you know, if AI is going to end my whole profession, you know, all that stuff, that's out of my control, and I have to just trust that God, if I seek first the kingdom of God, all these things will be added to me.
Wow. So let me ask you, kind of, with what you're trying to do for yourself, what would be like a typical client for you, and what would be some of the needs that you're helping them with?
Yeah. So this goes back to the conversation we had earlier about like faith. So if you look at my website now, it will say world-class design for Christian-led organizations. And so my heart is really, I want to provide, there's a shortage of industry grade creative among Christian-led organizations. You can see it a lot in the church. There's like a lot of corny Christian designs and all that kind of stuff. But for businesses, nonprofits, individuals, all of churches, I want to provide the best possible graphic design services I can. I'm specializing in branding. So basically what I did for the podcast, the logos, strategy, and the design system around it. But also more important, and web design, but more important than the actual discipline or service I'm offering is I want to work for organizations that I believe in. If I believe in what you're doing, AKA I made it Christian-led organizations because I want to advance the kingdom of God with the work that I do. Even if it's like a company like Chick-fil-A, you know, in their own way, they are advancing the kingdom of God. Right. I would be willing to do pretty much any type of design work, which over the last 6 years at this agency, I've had to do as the only designer at the company for so many years. It's just, I want, it's more important who I'm working with than what I'm doing for them. But at its core, it's going to be design, graphic design. Yeah.
And then in terms of like content creation, how does that fit into the picture of everything?
Yeah. So content is something I'm still figuring out. Content is mainly so I've done when I look into, if you ask any content guru or like person who's like helping content creators, they will tell you that it is incredibly difficult to build a living as a content creator, just as a content creator. But if you're using content to support a business that is outside of your content, then it is a very, very powerful marketing tool, marketing asset. And so for me, the core business is going to be the design services, and the content is going to just support that. But I do also have a heart to basically help other people benefit from graphic design the way I did. Before graphic design, I thought I wasn't really able to do anything, like have a career. Like I couldn't make a living. I wasn't really valuable or good at anything is what I thought, and what I believed about myself. And I believe that especially in the Asian American community, and maybe even more so in the church, I'm not sure, but there is so much stigma around a creative job, something that isn't like a very hard skill that is like technical. or like doctor or whatever, because of the immigrant mentality. You know, it's instilled within us. You need to make something. You need to do something stable, not creative. I think there's so many people that believe that they're not good at anything, and that they're just doomed to have a career that they will hate. They'll have to hate going to work every day and not feel fulfilled in your job. But graphic design has the power, I think, to appeal to a lot of people who are maybe natural artists, and give you the ability to serve people. It's like a very accessible skill. You can help your friend like immediately, whereas a doctor, it would be more complicated, you know? And yeah, it can change your life. Like you can have a career without having to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a degree. So I think so a lot of the content I've done in the last 6 months has been teaching designers how to be better designers. I do have a heart to explore what that looks like, of like, how can I create something that can advance the kingdom in my own way, like within this field, and help the needy and all of that. So.
Oh yeah, because as a consultant, there's like nothing I can do to help my friends.
Yeah,
there's no skill set. I mean, maybe helping them figure out some Excel stuff, but
I mean, this podcast has done a lot for the community.
Maybe.
But yeah, I mean, it is a blessing as creatives. Like every creative role, it is like important enough where you can make an impact, but it's not so important that you need licenses and certifications.
Right.
Like I admit, like I recognize the doctors and lawyers and CPAs, like they all need to go through so much rigorous training and then have like barriers to entry, because you have the power to potentially ruin a lot of people's lives, you know? And for me, if I mess up, you lose some money, but it's like, you know, it's okay. You're not dying, but
I wonder, would you ever consider doing something like a weekend boot camp kind of thing to like help people? Because one thing I've realized about picking up a new skill is it's very difficult to pick up a skill unless somebody shows you how to use it in front of you. So like things that are super simple to like like in terms of Photoshop, how to open up like a new like file and then add layers and import images and stuff like that. Things that for you, it's like, well, anyone could just look it up and figure it out on their own. Like for somebody who doesn't know like where to start from at all, like somebody just sitting in front of you and then like showing you while you have your computer up and like kind of walking you through it. I think that can be a game changer, because when I was in high school, I took a art class. I took a bunch of art classes. Once upon a time, I wanted to go to art school, and I never did. But I did a graphic design course where I learned how to use Photoshop. And Photoshop before that was such a foreign concept to me. But then after taking that one like simple high school class, even after that class, I used Photoshop for like just a lot of like nothing like crazy, but just a lot of like random stuff, because like I knew well enough how to open it and make adjustments to photos and stuff like that, you know? So I don't know. Just throwing ideas out there. Maybe one day, if that's kind of the path that you kind of keep going down, that could be something interesting to do.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have done things like that, and it is very fulfilling. I mean, I did like a career day seminar at our VBS at Hun Vision for
awesome.
Graphic design, and I like talked to the kids about what graphic design is and logos and all that stuff. And then I did do a little bit of like Photoshop, but it was like, pick which color you want to use and, you know, all that stuff. And I think it's really exciting to see how the kids respond, you know, because they never paid attention to these things before the class, but then now they like notice the things. I think that's really exciting for me. It's just, the challenge is like, it's a great vision, but I am worried about paying my bills first.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I hope like if I can serve enough clients and get enough brand deals, I'll have the space to be able to focus on things like this, and then eventually turn that into something where that can be like most of what I do.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Because like for me, if someone told me like, hey, pay like $100 and you get to go through this like really crash course type of thing for Photoshop for like one Saturday afternoon, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll do that. Like even if I'm not pursuing a career in Photoshop, like having some of those skills, like even if it's for something silly like, oh, I want to be able to Photoshop like movie characters into like family photos I have, or you know,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I would be like, oh, I wouldn't mind, you know, investing a little bit of money in
Yeah.
like an afternoon to just doing something like that. Yeah.
That is interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
I'll think about it.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to make sure that we circled back to was your thoughts on AI and kind of like you were able to kind of dive into that world and you got to explore a lot of things. You looked at different tools, like different AI models and things like that, right? What do you see as the future of, you know, all those criticisms about, oh, this is going to replace creatives' jobs, or it's going to, you know, it's going to condone plagiarism because it's recycling, like all those things. Like what is your take on it?
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on this. And I think the conversation, first of all, requires a lot more nuance than people are giving it. I think a lot of the conversation about AI is going to displace a lot of people's jobs, is ignoring the majority of the world that has been displaced by the current structure of jobs in the creative industry.
Interesting.
So, you know, you have basically every wave of technology, there's like a status quo that eventually gets reached, right? Where maybe the people who are at the top are like the top earners, and then the people who are at the bottom are like just working for scraps and then doing really cheap work, right? So that'll be like your designers on Fiverr, or like people who are like getting paid $10 for a logo or something. And then you have people who work at the top agencies who are getting paid millions of dollars for a logo for like Pepsi or something, you know? And then you have all of these other people who will never have access to Photoshop, who will never have a computer, who will never have a phone that they can make stuff with. But maybe if they had those things, they would be the next prodigy, you know, or art director that thinks of the next amazing idea, you know. The advent of AI is such a disruptive technology that will disrupt every single industry on the face of the earth. It breaks apart the status quo, so the tiers are looser, you know. The barrier to entry is gone. All of these people who maybe they just need the lowest like $10 smartphone or something that is eventually going to reach the people even in the poorest countries, because of maybe like offsite processing where it's like being processed at the AI company's servers or whatever, they can realize their creative ideas and then sell them and then make a career out of it, and then potentially upend the current status quo. Whereas before, like, only people who had cameras could be photographers. People who had these giant box cameras, you know, no one could ever enter that industry, or only people who had the like entire alphabet of Helvetica in metal letter forms could actually, you know, print things or like design graphics or newspapers or whatever. Now it's like, with the advent of computers, you can just click the drop down and then choose whatever font you want and then, you know, make stuff. Just as like all of the people who are listening to this probably have done that in Microsoft Word or something. That is something that is democratizing. It's like putting the tool, the creativity, into more people's hands and resetting the structure. It is true that some people will be displaced, but those people have been in the industry and have enjoyed it for up to this point. They could decide to pivot and adjust and relearn and then try and play the new game. Or it could be time for these people who have always been marginalized, never had opportunity, to now have equal footing with these other people. I think that is something that is often overlooked in this conversation.
Yeah.
Those people are going to now have the ability, to have a chance. But the problem with AI, I think, is that it is so powerful that it can be used for a lot of bad things. But I also think big problem with that, a lot of people who are talking about that or criticizing AI is that their conclusion is, let's boycott AI, let's disengage, But the issue is that if you disengage, you're basically relinquishing the fate of AI technology into bad actors' hands, because they are going to be the ones who are engaging.
Right.
If you are on your moral basis boycotting it, you're kind of ignoring the responsibility that you have as a good person to engage with it and use it for good. We have to, as people who have good intentions, engage with it and push the scales so far to good that it is a net positive good impact on humanity. But the people who are afraid of it, very slow to adopt it, or just want regulation to stop it from progressing, that is, I think, eventually going to damage humanity because everyone else is just going to engage.
Right. Oh, wow, that's fascinating. That the parallel that I think of is like this podcast. There was a point where you needed a radio station to have to do something like this, but with the internet and different tools and things like that, pretty much anyone can start a podcast.
Yep.
But if at that time people were boycotting and saying, well, then this is going to displace all the great radio stations and therefore I'm not going to engage in it, then all the people who have bad intentions would have made podcasts, and the whole podcast space would just be these bad podcasts.
Yeah.
Oh, so that does make sense. But
Yep.
what one kind of controversy that I remember, this was like right during, and I think this like came up on my feed because I was following you, and like it was like during your kind of AI days. There was a like contest, like an art contest, where like somebody won using AI, and then people were like really confronted with the question of, well, how much of this is actually you going through the creative process versus that process borrowing from the works, like creative works that other people have already done.
Yeah.
So what is your take on that?
I think that is a more subjective issue. So I would say I am, I think, more like liberal with the definition of art. Like, I think you prompting Mid-Journey to make an image, to generate an image for you based on its probably unethically, sourced data sets, is the same or comparable to an artist taking inspiration from their life and painting. I think the difference is just who's doing the work. Like, and I know that I think there's a big group of people, maybe the majority of people are going to say, actually, it's different because this person is using their hands and there's blood, sweat, and tears. There's human effort and time and all of that energy poured into something that makes it unique and more valuable, And I can see that. I acknowledge that. But I don't think it's any more art than something generated by your prompt. I think as long as you're still giving it a human input, you can take the credit as you are doing. You're just collaborating with the machine. I think it's similar because every artist is stealing. It's just happening in their minds.
Right.
Maybe they don't have the ability to make such an exact copy like the AI does, but some artists do have the ability to do that. I would say it is more important. The more important question for humanity is how does the advent of generative AI change the limits of human creativity? And we should be exploring what those limits are, because they could potentially impact the world in a really, really amazing way.
Yeah.
I do still think it's important that we solve the problem of ethically sourcing the data sets, which I don't think has been solved. I think like some big companies are doing it, or trying to do it, but
So when you say ethically sourced data sets, are you talking about like data privacy and like?
yeah, like consensually. Like so, Midjourney is just taking artists' stuff and training their models on it, and the artist doesn't have knowledge of it, and they know because people can type in the style of this artist, and then it has like a signature in the bottom, right? That kind of resembles theirs, and so it's like
funny.
they're definitely not. And these artists should be, at some point, there should be like a royalty model or a compensation model, similar to like streaming, what that did for music. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, okay. Oh, that's
but
fascinating.
I think that is an issue that has to be solved by AI,
Yeah.
because you can't keep track of all that with the current technology. But
Yeah, I think there's a big kind of real life concern about that is there are video AI like tools now too, where you can take somebody's likeness, and you can actually take, if there's enough, like if somebody really wanted to create a voice, like AI voice model of me, they probably could do that pretty easily, because
Yeah.
I think literally hundreds of hours of podcasts
Yeah.
out there. Yeah, if it's not ethically sourced, I think in the future, probably not exactly right now, but in the future, you could probably make convincing videos of people saying and doing things
yeah,
that they haven't really done or said. You know?
yes,
So,
absolutely. That's that is happening. There's, Mr. Beast.
yeah, yeah.
He there was a casino that did an AI replica of him and made him endorse their casino, and he had to have them take it down and everything. But it was convincing.
Yeah.
I mean, and it happened. Like actually, this year, our company, the company I work for, we lost a huge video production client because they decided to get an agency that makes a AI replica of their speakers for course materials. So they just go in there, they do like a certain set number of gestures and say weird words and all that, so the AI can get all of the sounds and everything, and then just you type in the script, whatever language you want, perfect accent,
Wow.
and your mouth is not dubbed. It's like it's like it makes the right shapes,
Yeah.
and you have the perfect accent.
Wow.
There's like some imperfections, like the people who speak Spanish in Europe are different, use different words,
Sure.
and but like it's happening now, and the government does need to regulate those things. Like that needs to happen yesterday.
Right.
But we have old people, so.
Yeah. Wow.
But I think it will happen, and once something catastrophic happens as a result of it, it's definitely gonna
Yeah.
happen. But
Yeah, it's interesting to look at AI and then think back to the advent of all the technological advancements that's happened before, and to kind of try to see what the path forward for AI might be. But the only difficulty there is like AI is such a powerful and just all-encompassing thing that I don't think there's really a big comparison. Because like I'm thinking about maybe like the advent of the internet is really the closest thing.
yeah, I think so, because the internet changed every industry, and the power that the internet offered, like, has made every industry potentially better in many ways, but also worse in a lot of ways, created new industries that are damaging. But I think it is similar, and I think it might be more life-changing than the internet.
Yeah, there's a quote where someone's like, I wanted machines to fold my laundry and do my yard work so that I can sit back and do my like write poems and stuff.
Yeah.
But then it's like the opposite.
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it'll eventually get to all of those things. But
Wow. So do you use any AI in your process?
I do. I use it every day.
Oh, yeah.
So like built into Photoshop, there's
the
generative fill, generative expand. Like you have no idea how helpful that is at everyday work as a designer. When I do captions on my videos, those are AI powered, detecting, transcribing, all of that. I have a thing that I attach to the back of my phone. When I have meetings, it just records and then automatically makes summaries for me.
Wow.
I don't have to have any note takers anymore. It's like, it has made my life a lot easier. Actually, every Wednesday, I lead a small group, the young adult small group at church, and it's based on the sermons. Right now, we don't have a pastor who's making questions for me, right? And so we have guest speakers. I take notes, and then I give it to ChatGPT, and I say, hey, give me 5 to 7 questions for intimate, vulnerable, faith-based conversation between a group of Christians. And then it gives me these questions based on the sermon notes. And then I use that as like inspiration to write the questions for, but it's like so useful.
Yeah.
So I use it whenever I can
Yeah.
to make my life easier.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's so many areas of application I can see AI disrupting things that it's kind of mind-boggling. Wow.
It is.
So
It's crazy.
you're a solo what's the word that's like solo entrepreneur?
Solopreneur.
Yeah, you're as a solopreneur, is AI, I mean, it must be hugely helpful, like you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes, it's very helpful.
So maybe that can be something that if you ever do more of the instructional stuff, then
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens, because I think it's only a matter of time until there's a like completely from the ground up reimagined design software that is completely dependent on generative AI and not something like Photoshop, that I think will overtake. I mean, it might be made by Adobe or bought by Adobe. I don't know.
yeah,
But,
right.
but I think that'll happen, and then it'll change
Yeah.
the way designers do things forever. And then how design must be taught also.
Wow, fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And anything else? I know I kind of jumped into the AI conversation, but was there anything else about your kind of business that you're starting up that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to touch on?
No, I don't think so. I'm just looking forward to it. Starting in January is when it's going to be really real. And I'm just excited to try it, see what happens. Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming today.
of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, this was a conversation I really wanted to have for a long time, and it's really interesting to see you kind of on your journey, because I think the first time I was introduced to who you were as a person is when you were like still doing music, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, captivated, this guy doing music, oh, he's great.
Yeah.
And then kind of seeing all the turns and pivots that you've made to kind of get to where you are now, it really does make me think, man, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. You can plan out your life as well as you want, but there are twists and turns that I think for you, for the most part, has been positive, right? Like it's been taking you. I mean, maybe while you were still doing the music thing, if you found out like 10 years from now you're going to be doing design full time, maybe it might have been discouraging for you in that moment. But yeah, just seeing the story unfold, it just does really give a little bit of insight to the creator of that story. You know, like God really working things out in your life and laying paths out for you and things like that. And it's really encouraging, I think, especially for listeners who feel like they haven't found what they love to do yet. And yeah, just to know that you're not ever really stuck on a path. I mean, and one thing I'll say to kind of, hopefully this is encouraging to you, is I think even if you did have a kid in this moment, I think you'll find new capacity to be able to still do your business. It might take a little bit longer. Obviously, raising kids do take time, but I think, yeah, it's kind of weird how God still like helps you be able to do certain things, even with kids. Because yeah, I think about my own life with like, and there are days, there are weeks where I work a lot. I mean, I don't have a business, but just kind of the work that I do. There was a time where I thought, man, am I still going to be able to do this even with kids? Like I don't even understand how my coworkers right now who have kids do this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it's, you don't really fully know it until you're in the moment and you see God work in that and give you like, either he'll give you a new path, or he'll give you new abilities, or he'll give you increased capacity to do certain things. All that to say, I mean, I'm not saying, oh, you should go have a kid right now. All I'm saying is, for the listener, that I don't think you're ever stuck on a single track. If you feel encouraged, inspired, and motivated to do something else and pivot, yeah, I think with enough prayer, faith, and effort, you can make things happen. It might not be like the lottery ticket winning like blessing that you might expect, but yeah, I think we would all be surprised, the things that God can do when we kind of leave things up to Him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to be clear that I shared the highlights. I definitely went through a lot of changes that were
yeah.
bad.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But those are all just a step in the journey to getting to the right place. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or anything you want to understand in the brand identity kind of formulation phase, please reach out to Edward, or you can reach out to me, because I went through it firsthand. So
You're right.
From a client perspective, I can give you a lot. And I'll just go ahead and say I fully endorse this man. If you have any faith-based businesses that need his services, yeah, just the few things that we talked about should tell you what a man of integrity and faith Edward is. So you should rest assured this is the guy who can get it done for you. So again, thanks for coming, and thank you guys for listening.